This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Cabana Republic, and spawning as the Cyan allies. On the left side, we do have YuiYui, and as the Red Soviets on the right side, it is H2O's LiCtor. Going Crane first, and that is right, it is LiCtor versus YuiYui, but it is not an allied mirror, but it is going to be on Cabana, a big map. And it is going to be just a single Rax because LiCtor is playing Soviets, and YuiYui does know that. So it's not going to be anything like a random Soviet as far as I know. And LiCtor, as you know, he went Crane first into Power Plant Barracks, dual refinery. And of course, as Soviets, he's going to be looking to get up to 3 or 4 refineries as quickly as he can. Well, no, not necessarily as quickly as he can, but within a reasonable amount of time. As you can see, YuiYui going to be opening up fairly standard, just with that single Rax followed up by the refinery. He could be going Naval Yard before second refinery, but it probably will just be a second refinery, but we will have to see. I mean, he could also be going Airfield, as there are some nice strong plays that you can make if you get out the Airfield before the Bullfrogs get in too high of numbers. Oh, YuiYui, no! He's actually trying to go for an expansion at some point, but one of his collectors are bugged. That's going to be a serious detriment. If he does not get that back online relatively soon, he is going to be in a lot of trouble. It is going to be Expand and Super Reactor pretty much at the same time. As you see, the refinery is going to be going down there. And let's check up. Okay, the collector has gotten back online, and he is no longer bugged. Sometimes they will just kind of freak out and drive along the sides. Typically, walls do prevent that, but sometimes it does happen. And in the middle of the map, of course, trading conscripts for Peacekeepers, not exactly what you want to be doing. Nice control there by YuiYui. Is going to be ejecting the Peacekeeper out of that building. And of course, this is why you do not want to engage in any sort of infantry takeover building wars with conscripts. Because of course, Molotov cocktails are free, and they clear buildings just fine. So you are going to be losing that war of attrition to some degree. Although if you can clean up lots of Peacekeepers, or lots of conscripts, then it may end up being worth it. As you can see, YuiYui trying to snipe down conscripts, and he's doing a pretty good job of it. LiCtor going to be heading out to a potential 4th refinery location, but it is being camped by a dog. YuiYui knowing that a quick 3rd and 4th refinery is possible, and is relatively likely. We do have the MCV out on the water. Potentially a Naval Yard will be getting thrown down, but we'll have to see, is it before or after that 3rd refinery? And the MCV actually coming in for I'm assuming, a barracks placement to go ahead and capture that oil, as YuiYui did capture his oil a significant amount of time before that of LiCtor. So together we have a couple of different things. We have number 1, the 3rd refinery going down by YuiYui, which actually isn't number 1, it should be like number 6 on the list. But we had that little slip up there with that ore collector where he did bug out. But YuiYui was able to grab that ore collector first, or grab the ore refinery first, oil derrick first. However, technically, LiCtor did have his 2 and 3 ore refineries up before YuiYui, and we may be seeing a 4th relatively soon. The oil derrick gets captured, and 4 MiGs show up, claim 1 Apollo, and 1 MiGs, and one Apollo will escape. The 4 MiGs, how much damage did they actually take? Not a whole lot, but is this actually in range of the Crusher Crane? No, it is not, which means LiCtor is going to have to remember to fly his MiGs over the Crusher Crane to get those free repairs. In the meantime, he is going to be continuing to move his MCV. This dog may come along and tag along with that MCV, and by the way, I actually completely missed that. Remember when YuiYui built that extra ore collector down here? Yeah, he built an extra refinery with it that I did indeed miss. So actually, 4 refinery allies versus currently 3 refinery Soviets, which typically allied players, especially if they start being super cost effective with those cryocopters, they can just really steamroll once they get up to that point. LiCtor going to be moving his MCV, so actually, since I forgot about that 3rd refinery location in the north there, that does affect everything else quite a bit. I was going to make a statement about how LiCtor is, slightly ahead, but then I forgot about that. Twin Blade's going to be dropping off an engineer and capturing that oil derrick. So depending on how long LiCtor is able to hold that, that will be very nice. And LiCtor spotting that prospector, he's like, hey, what exactly are you doing, YuiYui? Going to be going for another refinery. Does he actually know about this guy down here? Probably not, but he may be able to scout it out if some MiGs and Twin Blades swing over there. That's 5 MiGs, which means we're currently sitting at those 2 airfields. 3 Twin Blades currently out on the field, and this Prospector may be forced to deploy early, because otherwise it will most certainly go down. It will go down anyways, and the IFV shows up at the wrong time to try to save that Collector. It looks like 2 IFVs and 2 Apollos, but really the Vindicator's going to be getting some extra shots off on that MCV. In the north, the dog does still stand, taking a couple of shots there from the Twin Blades. LiCtor might want to go ahead and clear out that dog just to make sure that he can expand there if he wants to. Dual airfield, and now the War Factory is going down. But do we have a War Factory out for YuiYui? Yes, we do indeed. The engineer inside of that multi-gunner IFV most likely going to be for that oil derrick cap. And actually, 2 engineers inside of those IFVs, so he's looking to capture both of the oil derricks. We'll have to see if he's able to get away with it, because Twin Blades could be spotting that action and shut it down pretty hard. However, LiCtor has cleaned up the dog, which means he can freely take both of these refineries from that MCV. We'll have to see if he's able to hold those, because once you take over those refineries, especially if your opponent knows about it, there's a number of things that they can do. Apollos do show up. They get absolutely trashed. 1 IFV does go down. 1 engineer does survive. I think the other engineer went down inside of that IFV. 4 Twin Blades are here. 1 MiG got eliminated, I do believe. As, yeah, we do have, 1 MiG most likely did go down from at least one of those airfields. IFV's running back out across the map. However, YuiYui was able to utilize that extra engineer and take over that oil derrick. Or refinery going down. A second one could get deployed, and currently, let's take a quick recap of the refineries. It is 3 refineries for LiCtor, and we have to actually make sure that all of these refineries are mining, because if something gets sniped and then the ore collector does not get back to mining properly, then that is of course not a functioning ore refinery, and so the minimap isn't always telling us all the details, and we do have to check for ourselves. It looks like the Twin Blades will be able to escape. Not quite enough damage output from those IFVs, and oh, 1 Guardian tank gets absolutely smashed there. LiCtor going to be moving forward with the Guardian tanks, and that poor engineer, he is not going to be living for too much longer. YuiYui doing a good job bunkering up with some nice base defenses and mixing in javelins with the Guardian. Oh! Okay then, so that Vindicator is extremely cost effective. 2 grand going down right there to those 3 bombs. Another Prospector will be revealing that, hey, LiCtor actually does have control of both of those oil derricks, and this is not something you see very often, is a Soviet player actually in complete air control over an allied player. An extra power plant will be going down. YuiYui may be forced to move his MCV and start putting the pressure on once he builds up a couple of more Guardian tanks. We'll have to see if he decides to pack up that MCV and go in for a turret push, or if he's just going to be primarily relying on his tank forces. Another super reactor going down, and these are relatively close, which means that if this base is under assault, there's a lot of stuff here that's going to be easily taken out in sequence. And of course, if a super reactor was up here, it would be a little bit harder to defend, but it also means that if someone attacks up there, you aren't necessarily going to be losing as much, or rather, if someone attacks down here, you aren't necessarily going to be losing as much. Battle Lab has begun, but YuiYui is starting to turret pushes with his command hub, and that should give him just barely enough radius, rather, to go ahead and take down that ore refinery. And unfortunately for, I think a base defense just got canceled there, and actually LiCtor, he's placing down the reactor so that if he is able to save the reactor, he will be able to still rebuild that ore refinery. He'll have just enough build radius with that reactor to go ahead and get that ore refinery. And oh, the engineer should be able to pop inside of that building, as the conscripts just do not do very much DPS, and LiCtor wasn't actually focus firing enough to take that down. Another multi-gunner turret will be getting deployed here, and it will be able to take out at least a couple of these Twin Blades if they stay and fight. This is, oh, 1 MiG does go down, which means that multi-gunner turret has pretty much already paid for itself. Flak Trooper's going to be taking down that oil derrick relatively quickly here. IFVs, on the other hand, will be getting trapped out of position, which 3 IFVs going down. That's not exactly cheap. Barracks will get eliminated as well, and a couple of Twin Blades may go down to this Javelin Trooper or to the multi-gunner turret. We'll have to see. A second multi-gunner turret does go down. YuiYui really bunkering up hard. And I mean, both of these players playing a definite macro game on this map. Cabana Republic just being a lot oriented towards that macro play. Tier 3, it should be out for LiCtor as well. No, it's just going to be finishing up, so he's definitely under a lot of stress financially. He doesn't have quite as much money as he would like, despite the fact he is sitting on those 4 refineries, soon to be 5. And YuiYui, like we said before, he's currently sitting on those 4 refineries as long as they have not stopped harvesting. And I'm not sure if it's satellites or if it's a Badger bomber. Yes, it is going to be a Desolator airstrike coming in to go ahead and throw down some toxins on top of that area. Naval Yard is going to be getting deployed right next to that multi-gunner turret. And I mean, this multi-gunner turret is still a threat, but once we get a couple of Stingrays out, ooh, that Prospector extremely close to going down. And the second Prospector will be relatively unharmed, not super good. But once we get a couple of either Stingrays out on the field, which I'm not sure how many Stingray overcharge blasts it takes to take down a multi-gunner turret, but once we see either a couple of Stingrays or could just go straight for the Akula subs, as Akula subs, especially with their special ability, do trade pretty darn evenly with those multi-gunner turrets. Of course, they're a bit more expensive, so you do have to keep that in mind. But the Battle Lab has finished, which means V4 rockets on the way. The MCV can still be scrapped and fed into that Crusher Crane for an eco boost if LiCtor does need it. He's currently sitting at lots of eco in terms of those 5 refineries, and he's also, on top of that, he's sitting at all of his tech, and he does have all of his production facilities. So is he necessarily going to need 2 build queues? Probably not. But does he want to necessarily give away his MCV right now? Well, obviously he doesn't want to do it just yet because he's kept onto that MCV, but that is something that he does have the option of doing for that extra credit boost, because of course you get, I believe, 2/3, it's either 60% or 2/3 when you refund stuff into the Crusher Crane, and when you're talking about a 5,000 credit MCV, that is quite a nice amount of money. And Cryoblast will be coming down, multi-gunner turret does get deployed, and that command hub just barely surviving long enough. However, oh, it's not actually enough to freeze down either one of these structures. The Akula sub is going to have to try to kite away or kite around here. A second Akula sub should be popping out to deal with that multi-gunner turret, and that special ability will most likely be activated. And then depending on what comes out of that naval yard, they may not actually be able to stop the Akula subs as V4 is raining down. That Javelin Trooper got severely killed. Athena Cannon's going to be firing off, but it's only one Hammer Tank, which will be going down. Can YuiYui actually stop the Hammer Tanks from crushing it? It is going to be a Hydrofoil, rather, which is definitely a good choice. A Riptide on top of that to help deal with this Akula sub. Natasha is also out on the field, but it is going to be the battle of artillery as V4 rockets clean up a Guardian Tank, and a second one does go down. Aegis Shield gets activated in the back just to make sure that nothing too crazy is happening, while we do have Javelin Troopers going to be sniping down one of those refineries. A nice move there by YuiYui, and LiCtor is going to have to deal with these Athena Cannons at some point. He's got lots of infantry, but can he actually do the damage that he needs? One of these rockets could finish off that Athena Cannon. It does indeed, and YuiYui starting to make headway in the northern seas as he is going to be smashing through a lot of these refineries. Riptides, multi-gunner turrets, and hydrofoils going to be making that assault happen for sure. More artillery shots going to be firing off, and that Athena Cannon is more than dead as 2 more rockets slam into the dead body of that Athena Cannon just to make sure. A couple of more shots could be finishing things up. It could be a Badger bomber or potentially the Tier 2 Delta airstrike coming in here, which would be doing significant damage to the Athena Cannons, but it will also be blocking the Flak Troopers from doing too much. The one Athena Cannon does snipe down a V4 or 2, but the V4 is striking back, able to take down one more Athena Cannon. The artillery wars have begun. The Riptides in the north side are going to be clearing out even more of that refinery. Looks like they weren't quite able to do it, but LiCtor, is he going to be losing a super reactor? That is a great opportunity for YuiYui. And on top of that, Natasha going to be sniping and taking over that aircraft carrier to go ahead and start bombing all of this stuff of YuiYui. LiCtor is going to be having some pretty free reign on that base, blocking the power plant with those barracks. A good move there by YuiYui, or by LiCtor, but YuiYui might be able to get the super reactor. One bear does come out. Will the roar be close enough? No, it will not. There goes the super reactor doing some pretty devastating damage, taking out the barracks, and the Battle Lab will be getting sold off as well. No more Tier 3. Also in the northern seas, we do have the Cryoblast firing off in the middle of this map, taking down a couple of Hammer Tanks, but one does survive. There's the multi-gunner turret. It does finish off a couple more of those units. I'm not sure what that was that actually took that down. Flak Troopers getting eliminated by Javelin Troopers. One shot, not something you see very often. V4s are going to be in danger if something doesn't deal with these Flak Troopers, and there is the EMP firing off from that aircraft carrier. We'll be able to lock down at least a couple of those V4s, or heroic V4s getting taken out. And on top of that, the War Factory did go down in the north of the refinery, gets eliminated. YuiYui finally does lose both of those Javelin Troopers. One of them got killed by the bear. It looks like the second one did get taken out by that Terror Drone. Another V4 does go down. The battle of artillery continuing out on the high seas as an aircraft carrier gets rained down upon, and that final missile does finish it off. These two players just absolutely going at it, but only with those higher tier units. Not a lot of tier 1 battles did indeed happen. However, in the late game, Riptides are going to be saving the day as they come in mixed in with those IFEs. Can they overcome the infantry masses as the V4 is getting focused down, but the MCV is now under fire, but it's not enough to stop the ground army, or is it? There's actually a fair number of flak troopers here. A couple of them are going to be fully heroic, and is it enough to stop the fully heroic army of YuiYui as IFVs and Riptides going down alike to the infantry forces, maybe focusing a bit too much on those V4s, as one of the V4s fully elite, and there is the heroic status, and also the aircraft carrier comes back online, and somehow, someway, LiCtor has broken through the front lines of YuiYui. Wait a second, is YuiYui actually just going to die to this? He very well may, as there is going to be the cash bounty. I do believe that LiCtor just eliminated that. How in the world did he turn this around? He was up against the ropes. YuiYui absolutely decimating him across the map, and then with the combination Natasha aircraft carrier, and this is actually going to be happening. This is indeed going to be LiCtor taking this game. I thought we were going to be seeing a game go on for a bit longer, but no, this is LiCtor just going to be cleaning absolute house. YuiYui getting turned around in just a moment's notice, and can he actually hold the line? He has almost no forces left on the map. YuiYui has not been able to really decimate the main base of LiCtor. And I guess putting all of his eggs in one basket down here ended up paying off, because that small area to defend wasn't ever really attacked. YuiYui cleaned up 3 refineries of LiCtor's. LiCtor just re-expanded to the south there. Did he actually end up keeping his MCV? I'm not entirely sure. He did indeed. It is right there. And YuiYui, he's got nothing. He's got nothing. He's got a war factory in the north. He's got almost no eco at all. One prospector will maybe escape on out of there, but the power plant getting focused down. The MCV already got eliminated. And YuiYui is just going to die. Like, there's almost nothing he can do. Twin Frog is the late game follow-up, if you can even call it really too much Twin Frog. I mean, 2 Bullfrogs, 2 Twin Blades isn't exactly a huge commitment. But now it's 4 Twin Blades and 2 Bullfrogs. Still not a huge commitment, but that Peacekeeper taking a lot of damage from those flak troopers. Even more damage from the aircraft carrier. Natasha being a bit of a hero in this game. Twin Blades going to be focusing down that oil derrick, which really were a point of contention early on, and then both players kind of forgot about the oil derricks. As YuiYui only lost the one over here after he captured it, and LiCtor just completely forgot about that oil derrick. This match, I don't even know. I don't even know. Because I don't know, it just seemed like it was going to go on for a while longer, and then it was like, wait, YuiYui doesn't actually have anything. Straight for that tier 3 almost immediately. We saw some Guardian tanks, we saw some Hammer tanks earlier on in the match, and then this game kicked into high gear as we were just in macro mode, shifted focus as YuiYui was leading multi-pronged attacks, but he couldn't deal with the attack at his main base, while his expansion, his third base where his MCV was. He couldn't deal with that. LiCtor rolled it into a huge victory, pressed on forward, and that was game. That match was actually kind of awesome. I didn't quite realize that that's how it was going to be going, but indeed, LiCtor, as we can see, economically ahead, which, I mean, a little bit rough there, as YuiYui was about the same, maybe passing LiCtor just barely, it's hard to tell, but LiCtor overall ahead economically. He established, I believe, Refinery 4 and 5 before YuiYui. And yeah, 10,000 credits of difference over the course of an 18-minute game. The majority of that coming in somewhere between the 7 to 10-minute mark, or after the 7 to 10-minute mark. And yeah, that was a game. Huh. All right then. This is Sybert signing out. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.